What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another draft video, and today we are here with something much different. I don't typically do videos like this. We've done a couple of draft breakdown videos a while back, specifically Darius Robinson, Cedric Johnson. We did a few longer videos like that, but I don't really do videos like this where they're kind of short, sweet, to the point NFL draft prospect breakdown. And I don't even know if I want to call this a full breakdown video, just in the sense of there won't be that many clips like I typically do. And a big reason for that in this video is because when I go through and I'm, grading all of these players, I'm not saving all of these clips. I probably should, but there's so many, I don't think I would have the dang storage for that. Man, I got to get some USBs to make that happen. However, as I'm going through and I'm preparing for a video that hopefully I post on Monday, which is going to be my wide receiver rankings, and this is something that can be updated before the draft, probably will end up on the website after I post it, and it could be moved around a little bit, but I'm going to do like a wide receiver rankings. I want to do this with like every position, maybe not including the top three, Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison, Leak Neighbors. If you guys want me to include those three, I can, but I was thinking about maybe just doing it outside of the top three. Seemingly know who those guys are. It's like, what about after that? Like, what's the next 10 after that? And I was thinking about ranking that through players that I've watched, and I was continuing to work toward that. I've definitely seen more than 10 receivers, done, deep dives on more than 10 receivers, but I'm just working through a whole bunch of different guys. Some guys I'm like, hey, I got to rewatch a little bit. Let me update what I wrote down because something seems a little bit off here now that I've seen more players. And today, I was doing that. I was watching a few different players, and one that I realized that I've kind of passed on, like I had seen the player a little bit, but I pretty much passed on him, is the guy that we're going to talk about today, because I got to be honest with you guys, I'm loving this prospect, so let's get it started. Welcome, everybody, to our video. Glad you guys are here, and yes, we're back with another Lions video. This probably will be on the shorter side. Every time I say that, you guys know it does not happen, but I'm going to try to make this on the shorter side. Again, there probably will be less overlay clips in this video just naturally. However, I thought, hey, look, man, it's draft season. No one's going to be upset with me just posting a little draft video talking about a specific prospect. And again, expect to have some ranking videos this upcoming week. And I don't know where this player is going to rank at because I haven't finished that ranking list yet. I'm still just kind of working through updating my information before I really dial it all in. However, this was a guy that I know has been brought up in the chat. I know that he's been mocked a pretty good amount to the Lions. If you go on PFF's mock draft simulator, they show the percent that a player is taken, and 9% mock drafts have this player going to the Detroit Lions at pick 61. With that being said, however, a lot of the grades that I've seen, and I did this after kind of going through the guy, is much lower seemingly on this prospect than I am. Now, with that being said, would I be shocked if this player ended up as a round 3 pick? Not really. I wouldn't surprise me, and that's because, first off, when you're talking about what a team needs, everybody needs different things, and there's a lot of different styles of receivers, so depending on what you're looking for, this player just may not fit that category whatsoever. But he also can turn off some teams simply by the play speed, and obviously that's the biggest knock. It's the lowest grade that I have. He's a little bit gradual. He's not super twitchy. I don't see some of that long, deep, level 3 speed that's consistent where he's striding away and stacking defenders. I didn't think he could necessarily consistently stack defenders unless he was able to completely just win off the release and then create it early. But being able to create it through the stem of the route, I thought that was extremely limited, especially if he was working toward the leverage of the cornerback. So because of that alone, this is not going to be everybody's cup of tea, right? He had a 4.52 40-yard dash. However, as I'm watching him, I'm sitting back and like, yo, this is just one of those dudes. It's just one of those dudes I really like, and I feel like I overlooked this player. So I'm going to do a video about it. I'm going to talk about him a little bit and say that keep an eye on him. That receiver, hopefully I'm pronouncing the name right, is Jaylen Polk, receiver out of Washington. Now, you guys knew that because you saw the title on the thumbnail. I'm sure it was in there somewhere. But Jaylen Polk, just over 6'1", 203-pound receiver. That's a redshirt junior that's only played 3 seasons with Washington. He's 22 years old, and he's kind of known as like the second receiver production-wise, last year to Rome Odunze. Also, you have Jalen McMillan, who I like him as well. I think he's a very interesting target, especially with some of the foot quickness that he has for level 1. However, this is a guy that I think, honestly, I don't want to compare him directly to Josh Reynolds. I think in a lot of ways he could actually compare a little bit more similarly to a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones on our roster, so that could or could not make the Lions interested in this prospect. But I also do think that there's traits that he carries that are similar to Josh Reynolds, and after going through this player, I was like, look, I got to do a quick video, and then immediately I was like, okay, let me see those testing numbers, and he tested in 4.52 40-yard dash, 37.5 inch vertical, 31 and 3/4 inch arms, 9 and 3/4 inch hands. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, those are solid scores. The 40 time does make sense, and why some teams be like, 4 or 5, I don't want to mess with that. So then I was like, you know what, just for fun, let me go see what Josh Reynolds tested out as. I thought it was kind of similar. Josh Reynolds, 4.52 40-yard dash, 37-inch vertical. Now, he had a 6'8" three-cone drill, but one of the things that I liked about Jaylen Polk was he surprised the heck out of me and some of the agility that he actually showcased, specifically off the release. I was expecting this going to be a nightmare. When I saw the way that he was moving in the first few plays, I was watching him, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a problem. I'm not going to like this guy because it's not that appealing to the eye. It's really not. Like, it's hard to, get blown away and be like, yo, look at the movement there. Like, I was going through Roman Wilson first, and I like Roman Wilson, but as I'm going through Roman Wilson, there's things that I like, things that I don't like, but you can see it. Like, there's times when he hits on the gas, and you're like, yo, that's legit. That's legit acceleration. But I would actually argue that while there may be more upside for Roman Wilson off the release, especially if he's, in spots that he doesn't have to deal with press as much, which he probably won't be because of his size, will probably be a lot more in the slot, I would argue this player is actually better off the release. And that's crazy because I haven't seen a ton of love given to this player and his ability to get off the line of scrimmage. I would argue that he's better just because there's not a ton of maybe creativity there, and he doesn't carry maybe some of the lean to consistently get off the line. Also, another issue with some of the foot quickness just isn't big time. It hurts him in terms of level 1 separation as well. And he probably could improve, just the foundation off the line of scrimmage to open up a little bit more lateral mobility. With that being said, though, I watch him off the line of scrimmage. I see a guy that really doesn't have false steps. Like, everything's doubted. There were plays Roman Wilson where it was like, okay, there's just extra steps here for no reason. He's not really doing anything. I didn't ever get that sense with Jaylen Polk. It was no wasted movement off the line of scrimmage. It was, man, I actually got some burst to me off the line of scrimmage. When I create depth, I have some burst and I can actually pry open coverage. The first one that stood out the most was against Oregon because they were willing to get up and press, and you were like, oh, snap, he's actually prying this open a little bit. Not to say it was always the best cornerback play, but the patience, you would also see the explosiveness in that first step with the depth that he created, like I said, that burst, and you'd see the first step into the stem of the route, which you're like, this is legit. This is legit. Naturally, he has the route strength, being at a little bit of a bigger build. He's a very strong receiver, though I don't think he tends to always take advantage of that, especially underneath, like in goal line or red zone situations. He's really good at the catch point and creating separation with his length, but not necessarily always boxing guys out and being like, man, this guy's just out muscling that dude. Really didn't get that sense a ton, and I think that's one thing that could be picked up on. But then he also had really good lower body control from balance, patience, playing within himself, the burst into that first step, and it was just like, this guy knows how to win. He knows how he wins. No wasted movement off the line of scrimmage, adapting to the coverage look. And one of my keynotes was active hands, specifically within the first 5 yards, but really downfield as well. They stay up, they're ready, and he's ready to keep himself clean. To the coverage look, and one thing that I always look for receivers, I look for this at every position, is the football intelligence aspect. And guys like, again, Roman Wilson, because I just went through him before him, is like, yo, Roman Wilson's got some of that. Like, this guy's calling out blitzers in the secondary before the play even happens. But what you see with Jaylen Polk is the ability to adapt to the coverage based on the movement. He moves a ton in this offense, right? You're thinking about a size, thinking, oh, that's your typical X. He's not going to move. He's going to stay on the line of scrimmage. He's going to always be wide. But that's not the case. He lines everywhere. Maybe not like Xavier Legette, who is at times lining at running back. Maybe not that. But you're talking about tight end. He would line in line. He would line in the slot. A lot of fast motion usage as well. He'd line wide. He's moving around. And you're like, okay, he's moving a ton here. And then because you get a lot of shifting and switching man coverage assignments, and his ability to adapt his release to the switch or the different look that he's getting. Now it's half turn. Okay, let me adapt to that. Let me adapt my game plan here. And it was really impressive to see that football intelligence aspect come along here for Jaylen Polk. So there's that. Now, what really stands out, and what will stand out about this player to a lot of people, I'm sure, is the hands. And I always start with hands, right? You guys know that. So, there's probably like a bar. Like, if you don't hit this bar, I'm really nervous. I'm worried about this prospect. And certain guys have that, and we'll talk about that when we go through the ranking. Others are kind of average, where you get some good, you get some bad. This is one of the player with some of the better hands that I've seen. Some of the better hands. And a lot of that comes back to the contested catches and the tracking ability that he does have. But 69 receptions, 1,100 yards this past season, 9 touchdowns, 16.8 yards per reception, which is great because it's almost identical to the year before, which was 16.9. And only 4 drops on the season. That was a 5.5% drop rate, which was excellent. He doesn't really drop the ball. And I think for him, it's the body control that's impressive. It's the ability to scoop the ball off the turf. It's excellent sideline awareness, which, again, because it's fresh in my mind, there were times with Roman Wilson where I was like, okay, he doesn't really feel the sideline here. He's just stepping out, or he's scooping down to make the grab, but he's also falling out of bounds simultaneously. Never felt that issue with Jaylen Polk. Felt really good field awareness on the sideline. And then he just tied into, as a pure pass catcher, he relishes the contested catch opportunities. And trust me, I'm not the guy that's sitting here like, I love the guys that make contested grabs. I don't. If that's where you live, I don't want that receiver. Like, if you can't get open so everything is contested, I don't want that guy, all right? It's a great attribute to have because certain route trees is going to be naturally there. But I can remember when guys like, I think it was TJ Vasher that came out. He was making some ridiculous grabs. Then you watch him, you're like, yo, this guy just ain't getting open. Like, he making some great grabs, but he ain't getting open. That's not really my guy. I think Brownlee last year, who I really liked, you guys remember, he was late, though, so it was different. It's like, all right, great contest sketches, maybe doesn't separate as much, but it was so late. In day 2, a guy that doesn't separate, I'm not on board with that. And I'm not saying this is the best separator necessarily. I gave him a slightly above average grade here, slightly above average. But what stood out to me, and this was the aspect that I liked the most, because we could talk about the hands, we could talk about the catch radius, which is legit, which is different from other receivers that I've watched. Like, for example, Anaya Smith, I went to him yesterday out of Texas A&M. Love it, right? The guy plays with an awesome energy, right? And he takes advantage of the opportunity because he doesn't get a ton of them. The quarterback play was very questionable. But you saw the catch radius issues where they would just throw to him and he just couldn't get a hand on the football. 29-inch arms. This player with over 32-inch arms, good leaping ability, and then also just naturally being on the taller side, but also the tracking that comes along with it. He brings a really nice catch radius, but his body control to scoop down, body control to work back to the ball. Xavier Legette has some of this as well. Really good body control as well. So you get all of those things that tie in, but it was the route running that to me was what I bought into here. And this is what's interests me. And I'm not sitting here saying, make this clear that like, yo, this is going to be my number 4 receiver right behind the top 3. That's not true. I don't know. It could be, but we'll see. When I get to those grades, you guys will see that. I got to finalize all that. I don't expect him to be. But will say the route running is what got me, because while I think he's slightly above average in separation, and there's a lot of knocks here because there are just simply things that aren't going to work great for him. He lacks twitch, like I said. I think level 1 could have a little bit of issues, especially when you start to open up complex route. It's one thing to run him on a hitch. It's another thing to run him on a speed out, but it's also another thing to ask him to make multiple breaks. You're just not going to get consistent separation there. Contact, which will slow down his pacing, and he can really struggle to kind of recover some of that speed that was there throughout the route. Again, I talked about the inconsistency stacking that will show up at time, creating corner routes, the lack of twitch just in general, and some of the suddenness that's there. But when you watch him as a route runner, this is what kind of sold me, and I was like, okay, I'm more interested than I thought it would be, is because to me, while the biggest issue is he lacks creativity, and you'll see it in like curl routes or even corner routes. It's like, okay, you just don't see the creativity to get a cornerback to either one, get on his heels, which is naturally there because he just doesn't cover that much ground. He's kind of a gradual build-up speed. He doesn't stride necessarily. There's explosiveness. There's good explosiveness in the first step. But as the route goes on, if you're sitting on top of the route, he's not going to push you back on your heels, and that's a problem. So you don't have that, but you also then don't have a ton of creativity where he's thinking outside the box, or maybe some of that box is just limited in how much he can actually put out there for a cornerback to have to deal with. But the creativity that I liked, which came into play as a route runner, was one specific example that hit me first. And then as I continued to watch, man, it's there, is his ability to run with excellent route discipline. All right, I'm always talking about route discipline. I love this. Strong discipline in the stem. He's very proactive around zone coverage, and this is where I started to see some of that agility in the lower body, not only off the release, but even in the stem where you're like, okay, he's kind of working around zone a lot better. Like I would have thought he's just piling into guys. He's not. He's kind of working around. Some of it's proactiveness. He sees it. He floats around it. The other aspect is there's actually some agility in the lower body that does show up a little bit. Things in terms of separation that can help, and is there is some fluid change of speed, and we got to see some flashes of that against Michigan, but it's the ability to hold route discipline. And there was a great example against Michigan where this is one of those guys to me that has that capability. You're talking about these level 2, level 3 routes, specifically level 2 though, to make one thing look like something else, and it looks exactly the same, and the cornerback doesn't seem to know how to react to it. There was a route against Michigan where it looked like for sure he's running a curl route, and the cornerback started to dive down. They're like, okay, plant drive on this thing, and immediately it breaks into an in-breaking route, and you're like, what the heck? And he creates separation right there. It wasn't because he was dynamic out of the cut, right? It wasn't because he had some of the best sink down and an explosiveness out of it. It's not even because there was tons of creativity or always change of speed into the top of the route, but it was the aspect of he made it look exactly the same as what a curl would look like. And that tied along with the discipline, the eye discipline, the hips. I mean, there are speed outs that he'll run where no part of his body is moving to the speed out until his hips do. And then you see it and you're like, oh, that was immediate, right? There's no tell whatsoever into the top of this route, and it creates separation. His ability to make a dig route look like a curl route to me is what really stuck out. That discipline to me was like, yo, this guy can actually route run. Okay, I want more creativity. I do. But he can really route run. And this is where it comes back to, it has to be a fit for your team, and there's limitations. But if you're a team that's going to buy into, okay, we want him as our level 2 separator, right? But he also has to be able to move around, which this player can do. You'll see people say, well, he's a zone beater. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I think he is a zone beater in the sense of one game, watch him against Arizona. That's a game where he's beating the zone a lot. And to me, a lot of that is because, like cover 3, for example, his discipline's there. Pushing the top of the route, the discipline's there. He separates in terms of, as soon as he comes out of the break, he launches himself into open passing windows. Like, he does a really good job of, when he plants and gets back the ball, he doesn't create a ton of separation. So against man, you're not going to get, like, easy separation through curl routes or comeback routes. They'll be contested, and this is where I think he could improve boxing guys out, but he has the radius to do it and the length at the catch point to kind of push off a little bit and make a play on the football, as is the route discipline. And the detail that's there. And because of that, now it opens up a lot of the zone success. So against off coverage or half-turn cover 3, where he can park himself down, show discipline, and when they try to drive, he can walk into zone windows and he'll pull himself back to the football. And you get those little nuances there that I'm like, man, I absolutely love this. And I think as a team, what you have then is a guy that on level 2 can open up dig routes, opens up crossers, and this was one of the more impressive aspects of the game. This is where you see all the contested grabs. His ability to just run crossers, track the football, adapt very loosely, adapt to the football, and then make a play. He thrives in contested situations. One knock I did have for his hands is I think his hands had come out early. He doesn't necessarily show them late, and he gives the cornerback a target to hit where he's just kind of holding his hands out there. That's something I think could have more nuance, like later hands. Let's have later hands to not kind of show, especially a trailing cornerback, where the ball is going to be. With that being said, though, you see the contest situation. You're like, yo, he's rising to the occasion. He lives for these moments. You see the competitiveness there at the catch point and half turn, being able to kind of make a subtle adjustment to kind of shift the leverage of the play a little bit. Maybe it's leaning into the top of the route on a crossing route. Maybe it's also the pacing that helps him break down, but that can also limit some consistent separation that you're going to get underneath. And at the same time, that's where you want more craftiness. And then also what you like is that through his route running is that he has a very consistent pace. And to me, that again comes back to discipline, but also some of the agility that it carries, where he can kind of create separation as the route rolls on, especially on post routes, things like that, wheel routes, because the pace continues. It's very consistent. You don't see a lot of like, oh, he's slowing down, now he has to speed up again, because he's too gradual there to do that. He'd have problems. Double moves are going to be limited. So if you're trying to run out and ups with him left and right, he's just not going to separate that much because he allows recovery. Even if he sells it, he's not getting cornerbacks to bite. It's just not there. So double moves, he wasn't connecting on those. He wasn't separating like you like to see. But again, I think for the right offense, if you're asking him to run dig routes, you're asking him to run single route breaks at the second level and at the third level. You're getting him in movement spots. You're putting him in the slot. You're lining him in different positions, which he's smart enough to do, and that was huge at Washington. Then also the aspect of, hey, when the cornerback's sitting on top, instead of him trying to stack, which he's not in a position to do, he has the sideline field and not step out of bounds. He'll use his length at the catch point. He's going to live on back shoulder passes, which we know when DJ Chark first got here, when Marvin Jones was here, like they would tap into that a little bit. The Lions would. I think they'd be willing to do that with a player like this if they know that he's going to go get the football. And to me, he'll do that. So this isn't going to be appealing to everybody. The idea that he goes round 3 makes a ton of sense. I would understand it. But I'll tell you what, for the Lions, I'm saying look out for this guy, because I think within our offense, he could make a lot of sense. And level 3 consistency that Josh Reynolds brought is not necessarily here with this player, even though the timing is just the play speed, because he doesn't stride as well as Josh Reynolds does into those routes. You could argue that's not there, and it more so resembles a Donovan Peoples-Jones. Maybe the Lions don't want to overlap that. But I will say, I just think this is the kind of guy the Lions would like. And then finally, you finish it off with not only the football intelligence, but also there is some run after catch ability. Now, the transition's too slow, right? He'll catch it, and he'll kind of center himself up to the defender and then try to go to work. It's like, you can't do that. It's got to be a lot faster. He misses out on opportunities to make the grab in knife foot field, right? St. Brown does a great job of that, where he'll kind of catch it and work himself backwards and try to do something. It's like, no, we got to get forward. But on level 2, level 3, or if you have him on the move, now you kind of have something. And to me, as much as I would like to see at times him just go get what's there, the competitiveness shines, so does the vision, and also just kind of the feistiness, like, yeah, I'm not going down. You're not tackling me. You might push me out of bounds, but I'm not going to get tackled on this play. And some of that feistiness does show up within his game, right? Again, he's not Xavier Legette maybe with the football in his hands, not maybe to that level, definitely not like the Corley level or things like that. But I'm like, he can actually do some things after the catch. The amount of screens that you see them run to a guy that's built like this is surprising, but he's kind of effective. And when he's got blocks, he's got the vision, he can go. And you love that aspect. And then you see the blocking, and you're like, man, the technique looks awful at times. Like, it looks all, he's just throwing himself. His hands are way outside. But is he giving you the effort? Yeah, because he lines in line to block. Like, he'll do things like that. The one against Arizona where he just launched into a guy, I was like, I love that. He just launched into him. So the fact that his contested pass catching is real. His hands are really good. The tracking is excellent, which is massive, being able to work over the shoulder, right? Slow down, pace himself to the route, being able to play through contest situations but still be able to find the football. The tracking is really good, which I think is a big thing that we lose here when you talk about losing Josh Reynolds, and it's something that I think J-Mo really needs to work on. So if you want a guy that's going to track the football well, and you're like, we kind of lost a lot of that with Josh, and J-Mo, that's one of his biggest areas that needs to work. I know he's a deep threat, but he needs to improve there. And with Khalif, it's like, okay, we might take the shot, but it's hard to connect on those. This guy brings big-time tracking once the ball hits the air, and because of that, now he replaces a lot of that. This to me feels like an immediate plug-in and play type of player. Can improve in some areas, may have some limitations, but he could play day one. So to me, I would just say keep your eye on Jaylen Polk, the 22-year-old receiver. He's not going to be for everybody. He's not necessarily going to be my favorite receiver. I don't know where he's going to come into my ranking, but he is the first player I'm like, yo, let me do a quick little video on this guy. Let me give this guy some attention. And the main reason is because I overlooked him. I definitely overlooked him. I was like, Jaylen Polk. I watched probably a couple plays. I was like, that doesn't look good. It's slow. Get out of here. And I don't like that. I want guys that can separate. But, man, you keep watching, you're like, there's a reason it works. Say, when you watch the combine, there was a clip from it, which I did like, is that they called him a building junkie. Like, that's what the people call him. They're like, hey, even though he's not the #1 reception guy, that's the building junkie. That's the guy that we trust in big moments. That's the guy that we can rely upon. And you see the variety of usage there. And that speaks to a lot of what I think that they knew they were capable of, because you have a quarterback that can make every throw, right? He could put the ball anywhere on the field. So it wasn't like it was a limitation within the offense. For certain offense, like, okay, they're just playing to that guy. But his ability to be involved everywhere, I think, sells a lot of that. Like McMillan, I like him, but a lot of it was level 1. And he had some flashes over the top, right? But this is a guy that was used everywhere in this offense. I'm going to leave right there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you, Prop, for watching, and I'm out.